Hi, everybody. Mondian Astral Oracles. I'm recording this on the day of the full moon, December 7th, and I've just over at Mind the Wild, the other channel, I've just channeled Mauna Loa, who's erupting on Hawaii, the world's biggest volcano. And I think it's interesting when I can get these channelings to kind of work in higher perspectives, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to channel Kali. I've never done that before. She's kind of been waiting out there because it's of course an incredibly fierce, and I wouldn't say dangerous, but of course a destructive energy to hold. And you can kind of think of these hypostases, these layers, right? So we have the physical, like the volcano, the thing that destroys to give life, and then we have like Pele, who's an embodiment of that, and then above that we have kind of these high, very divine principles that are, let's call it the direct phases of source energy, or the immanent mind of God that permeates everything, what the Hindus call Brahman, right? And Kali is of course that she's an aspect of Shiva, or he's an aspect of her, and she can be approached and has done so legendarily by the Thuggies in North India, for instance, what I believe is the theme of the second Indiana Jones movie, for instance. But as this deep sacred death, right, the deep destructive mother that gives birth to everything. So I'd love to channel her, and also partially because I realized that death has just been something that's kind of been circling me in odd ways in this year in particular. But I feel it's been an archetype that's been coming up in strange ways. And so the last place I stayed, for instance, I was kind of mesmerized by this weird looking compound out in the horizon, sitting behind the mountains and before the sea. And then when I got over there, I realized it was a necropolis, which it means city of the dead, right, in Greek, but it's essentially this weird pre-Christian tradition that they have in Italy, that's made its way into Catholicism, where they build like literal houses for the dead, like these collections of small mausoleums, and then people go there and hang out with their relatives. And that's like, at least to where I come from, like that tradition is completely weird, because we kind of tend to shove death in the background and ignore it until it's there, and then we bury people and then let that be that. Then we try to pretend that that wasn't really a reality. So to me, just this fact of living with death and also using it as a backdrop for life is incredibly interesting. And some cultures just do that much better than others. So you also find here in southern Italy, like posters that commemorate somebody dying, but also the anniversary of somebody dying. So, it's 10 years ago that our grandmother died, or like, and she was this person, and pictures of her, which is, I don't know, to my mind, of course, like my immediate cultural sensibility seems slightly morbid, but I think that there's a certain beauty to it, a certain honoring of the cycle of life. So I really enjoy it, and of course, like Mexican culture, they have this strange new cult, saint worship around sacred death, and of course in Indian culture they're also probably better at honoring this very cyclical order of life. So I am kind of excited about what she has to say, and I would like her to comment on, in particular, the movement of archetypes, because I've kind of come to this realization, or this discovery is moving into my life, where it's we are all ourselves, but we also hold the embodiment for everything within ourselves. We are a fractal of the total universe. So that means that all the divine archetypes can essentially express themselves through us, but we have some configurations, each of us, that we align with more than others. And it's when we become conscious of these that they begin to stir and change and show their potential. So I've really, in my own life, for instance, what I really identify this practice with is the archetype of the psychopomp. So that would be Hermes or Mercury in this tradition, but it's essentially the principle that boundaries and travels between worlds relaying information. So it's the soul leader in that way, like it leads souls from one place to another. But I also realize in like my personal level, it's been very much the archetype of the lost child. So the child that's lost in the woods, right? It's Hansel and Gretel, and and of course then the question is, where does the lost child go? He always winds up in the witch's cabin, toiling away and about to be eaten there. So it's also kind of this strange reality of how is it that these archetypes affect us, and how can we move them? How do we express them, and how do we move beyond them? So this will be kind of a wider message, and I'm just interested also, of course, in seeing where she will take it. So I hope that I hope that the moonlight is shining down on you, and that you're feeling connected out there. Much love. A thousand arms I have in hold, tearing reality at the seams, grabbing it and dragging it into a unity in my being. I am the Great Mother, one of her thousand faces. You know me and have worshipped me as Kali, though names are indeed irrelevant to me. I am the one that lets nothing escape. Everything is accepted, seen, appraised, weighed, adored, consumed, and then given off to the void, allowed to be absorbed, allowed to be reborn. None of this could take place without my being. I am the great matrix of the universe. I am the outer framework of existence. I am that I am, that you are, in me. In my being, you come to terms with your limitations. And by offering up those limitations, they are transformed and returned to you as raw potential energy. This is why you know me as death. This is the best way, the most immediate way to sense my presence in your life. It is the gift of clearing up, of making space, of processing that I offer. It is the gift of limitation. It is the gift of clearing up. It is the gift of calling an end to those things that no longer have momentum. Nothing can reach me that remains still. My ever watchful eye does not register or touch those things that abide in eternity. That is why you know my consort as Shiva, another aspect of my being, the one that restfully sits in eternity, untouched and unmoved. And in that immovable structure, all things are yielded up to me. Everything is reflected on this surface layer of the divine and given back to me, my presence and my being. Such is the lawfulness of existence. And so this creature, this creatus, this thing that has formed this human vessel that is offering its voice for me to address you. He asks and ponders, what are these archetypes, these deep divine templates that you express yourself through? How do you embody them? Why do you embody them? What is their purpose? You embody them because you are something. And being something, you need an outer shape. You cannot subside within the rawness of pure potential constantly. You need a constant to funnel this potential through. And that is the archetype. That is your patron deity, the small spirit that watches over your house, the roles you assume in your reality. They are templates that you order yourself through to steel yourself from the great leveling that will ultimately find you. You may find that some of these archetypes, they grow stiff and stale. They seem to dominate you, to possess you would be a term. And in your unconscious pondering of the circumstances that these archetypes give rise to, you will find that they will grow conscious awareness of their own limitations the longer they are given to creation. And so what our friend here is wondering is, how long must he wander in the woods? And he is finding that not only does his need to make itself out of that wilderness deceive him, not only does it lead him to places where it is unsafe to dwell for too long, but he also meets gentle guides, friendly companions, people who seem to want to nurture and nourish him, people who hand him gifts on his way to sustain him in the wilderness. Because these are the impulses that are triggered by the archetype of the lost child that he has been embodying in his personal life. So how can this archetype be changed? It is done so by radical acceptance and by yielding it up to another figure. And what is the opposite of being lost? It is being discovered. It is being found. And so curiosity, inquiry, examination, these are the energies that order this archetype around, that breaks its boundaries and allows for the transmutation of its potential to become a new template, to become a new matrix for life to be poured into, matrices upon matrices, places where energy can dwell, reside and develop, molds where you can grow these shapes that you then decorate infinity with. This is all you are doing in your fleeting glimpses as temporal life forms down here. And so, as he was addressing, there are different layers to your beings. And so, above this personal limitation of the archetype that he, you, someone, everyone is expressing in a given moment and situation, there sits a spiritual configuration, a template of something that has purpose, that is more stable in its incarnational path in its trajectory of becoming between lifetimes. Here he discerns then that the one who is lost in the woods is also someone who is traveling and traversing the worlds. Here there is a navigational principle. The wanderer, the traveler, the one who rests easefully at every station of their journey, who finds themselves at home at the inn, and who wanders on when their time there is up and their upkeep has been paid. This, then, is an instruction to allow yourself, when you find that the stasis of your lives becomes a burden for you to bear, you should offer it to me, give it to me, give it fully, yield it up to my being, to let it be destroyed and transformed, and see how that energetic return in the cycle of the sacrifice then creates a higher level of order, then creates a deeper integration of purpose, of meaning, of conscious understanding of your place on the path. Those are the instructions, the wisdom that I share with you this day. Those are the insights that you already know to be true. But I, in my benevolence, I have offered them to you this day, for you to understand and to move with the cycle of life and death into the restful beyond, seated in eternity as you are. My benedictions, my presence is afforded you. I bid you, I, the goddess Kali, bids you farewell. Very powerful energy. I hope that served you guys. Much love.